All right, welcome everybody. My name is Matthias Vras. I'm the curator of Domain-Driven Design Europe, and I'm here with Oskar Dudic, who is going to be the curator of the EventSourcing Live sub-conference. And we're here to talk a bit about what we're looking for and what the event is going to be like, and to answer any sort of general questions about call for papers. So Oskar, maybe you can start.
Yep. Hello. So my name is Oskar Dudic, and I'm working with event sourcing systems for last few years, and that's main interest. And I will start with a short story, short digression. So once I tried to gather information and case studies to curate them and publish them somewhere, like a web page or whatever, about the production grade event sourcing systems, because I knew that there are such. And most of the answers that I got was that, yeah, Oskar, I can tell you about my system, but you cannot use it anywhere because our company is treating that as a competitive advantage. And that was the pattern of the answers that I got. Which is nice because it says that indeed event sourcing can help in building such applications, but it's also not the greatest mark for our event sourced community. So this year, when we talk with Matthias, we would like to change that perspective, because I believe that especially outside DDD community, event sourcing is quite often perceived like a NESI. So everyone heard, no one saw. So we would like to show that, yeah, there are really systems that are built on that, and they are used with the really big companies, even top 50 from the Fortune and Forbes, etc. I know that precisely from my work at EventStoreDB, as working with Martin. Like recently, I found out that Bloomberg is using Martin. So EventStoreDB has much bigger customers. If can mention that after that, probably or not. So yeah, the leitmotif of this Event Sourcing Live we would like to do is to show the real world usage, the practical and pragmatical aspect of that. So we will be really open to see some case studies. And the nature of Event Sourcing Live is that it can go more technical than typically DDD Europe talks can go. So of course, we would still prefer to get the talks about the design. If you'd like to show some technical details to, for example, explain your challenges with scaling, with making DevOps around event sourcing, or building your tooling, that's fine. Then that's fine. But yeah, the focus still should be on the design and using the specific technologies or your architecture in the bigger context. So teaching people how to go on prod, what you can find, what challenges and how to solve them. So we are also open on, showing everything that is related to event sourcing. We would, of course, prefer something that is about event sourcing, but EDA, CQRS, and other architecture stuff that can be helpful to build event sourcing systems, that's also counts. So once again, pragmatic, practical, real world. And I think that Event Sourcing Live is also a good conference in a way that you can go down the rabbit hole. I know precisely that when I'm sending my proposals to some more generic conferences, then it's not easy to be approved if you are going with something really specific around event sourcing. So this is the conference that you can go down that path, which is, I think, the really good opportunity to show you what you like, what you do, etc. And one more thing that what maybe we probably wouldn't like to see is maybe some blurred perspective on event sourcing, because as we know, it's quite often mixed with other patterns, especially event streaming, etc. So let's show people event sourcing how it is really is. So in a nutshell. So that's in general what we would like to see. Matthias, would you like to add something to that?
Yeah, I think one of the issues we've had with the previous edition of Event Sourcing Live is that every talk starts by, well, I'm exaggerating, but every talks with explaining what event sourcing is. But of course, people don't come to an event sourcing conference if they don't know what that is, right? And so we really want this to be the place where the advanced discussion happens, where it's practitioners who are beyond the basics, who maybe have a system in production and are sort of trying to understand where to go next, or how to, well, things like scaling, how to deal with evolution, with complexity, with sort of tricky situations, maybe like designs that are not that are different from the typical event sourcing design. I guess there's a lot of I think a lot of it is still very much inspired by how the early pioneers talked about it, like Greg Young and etc. But I'm sure there's also people out there doing something that is maybe entirely different, that technically we could still call event sourcing, even though it's done in a different way. That would be interesting as well to learn from that. Yeah, and things that are maybe like, for example, what if only some things are event sourced and others are not? That sort of like trickier situations. What if you're introducing it into an existing non-event source system? So I think we're very much interested in sort of expanding this and seeing interesting and advanced and weird usages on the one hand, seeing sort of technical solutions and technical ways that people have solved problems. Where, for example, I know people have done this in maybe less ordinary databases. I know a bank that uses Cassandra, which brings its own limitations in terms of consistency and it helps with scaling, but it sacrifices some consistency. And how do you deal with that? Those are the kind of problems I think we are very much interested in. And just sort of seeing, and the case studies, right? Seeing this applied in real worlds on non-trivial projects is always very interesting. Going deep, right? Going to the actual heart of the matter. So often there's a risk with a case study that it sort of says on the surface what you did, but it doesn't really show the actual problem solving that went into it. So that's very interesting. And surprises, right? What don't we know? That's always very good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I agree. So the second day issues, like the 0 day, I think that luckily we have that already covered in resources. So all that stuff that you would like to know when you were starting, or the stuff that you would like to know before getting in some real production troubles. So something that will save you a lot of time or considerations. So yeah. I think that there are places that are uncovered, like DevOps stuff around event sourcing. So how to run event stores on production, how to make a blue-green deployment, or how to scale projections. Those are questions that I'm hearing really often, and I don't have even good resources to link, but those are just ideas. So whatever you think that is valuable, that shows the real usage, the solving the real cases, that's really what we would like to see.
in terms of format, we're mostly looking for 50-minute talks. If you have something like at DDD Europe, we usually have hands-on labs at the main conference. At foundations, we have 25-minute talks. If there are things that you want to do that don't fit the typical 50-minute or 45-minute talk format, let us know and we'll see what's possible. But that's sort of the basic idea, right? Is that it's sort of a technical conference focused on in-depth talks. Yeah, I think that's what we're looking for. I see somebody on chat is asking something about an idea for a zero downtime protocol around event sourcing. Will it be relevant to present and discuss this, as this hasn't been implemented yet? Yeah, that's always an interesting question, right? If it's very speculative, does it belong at a conference like this? And it's a hard question, right? We've had this before where people had a very, like for domain-driven design Europe, for the main conference, where people had an idea of how software or how something could be done or how it could work without having been tested in the real world. Yeah, it's like, what can you do to convince us that we should put this on our stage, right? Maybe it's if the idea is like very well worked out, but it hasn't been tested, does that make it valuable? Does that make it interesting? I don't know, right? I'd have to see it. Maybe Pierre, if you like, you can unmute and tell us a bit more about it.
So the idea came from the observation that when I wanted to do zero downtime or very small downtime before in my career, using mutable databases made it very, very hard and made it so that there are a lot of edge cases where it could go wrong. And I remarked that now that I'm doing event sourcing, I can imagine a very, very robust protocol so that I can do zero downtime takeover and migration protocol. And and it's clearly possible because of the nature of event sourcing. So that's that's why I think it would be interesting. The thing is, I don't need it in my team currently. It will need it in the future. So we are thinking about it, and I would very much like input about it, starting a discussion.
Yeah. So my question then would be, like, what can you do to make it more real, right? Can you build a prototype? Can you can you or can you turn this into something where maybe instead of a presentation, it's more like a discussion or lab setting where people will implement it with you, or I don't know, right? But it something like this where it doesn't exist yet. Maybe there's other ways to do something valuable around it that is not necessarily a talk then. So I'm not saying yes or no, right? And that's going to be Oscar's call, but maybe you have other opinions about this, Oscar. But it's harder when it's something that doesn't exist, that hasn't been tried, right? Why would we why should we believe you? That's the hard question if you haven't actually done it. This is supposed to be more of a pragmatic conference, right? Where but on the other hand, these are the kind of like, it's the place where these ideas need to be discussed and figured out. Maybe there's other people looking for something like this, and I want them to find something like this at this conference. Sorry,
yeah,
Oscar, go ahead.
For sure, that's a common challenge that people are having, and we don't have a lot of tooling around it, so there is a need for that. But I agree with Matthias that if it was a talk, then probably it would be good to at least have some first round or getting your hands dirty in that to get some initial challenges. But I'm also not saying no. Because maybe like discussing why would you even need that and how would you solve it traditionally and how could you solve it with event-sourced way, then maybe that's an idea to expand, because a lot of people don't even realize, and a lot of people, like, for example, think that running just SQL migration is always the easiest option, which is usually not. So yeah, you can try to think about it longer, maybe discuss that with like, I saw that if want to give you some second brain on that, and maybe after that sending us a rough idea and we can try to discuss that longer. But for sure it would be good to have it more than idea than to make it more real world. So
maybe a general thing about submitting to the CFP, there's a field for private comments. Like, put in anything that helps us and Oscar specifically decide, right? Like, if you have, you know, videos, if you have blog posts, if you have anything that you can put in there that helps us evaluate the session. We don't just rely on the abstract itself, which is usually very short. But we want to see, you know, like, have you written a book about this? That will help, of course. That means that shows that you spend a lot of time on this topic. Stuff like that helps. And the abstract itself as well, right? It's not a teaser, right? It explains to the participants what this will be about. I mentioned this in one of the previous sessions about CFP as well, but it should be the abstract shouldn't say something like, I'll tell you the 3 secrets of event sourcing, and not say what those are. Because then as a participant, I cannot evaluate, is this a session where I will learn 3 things I didn't know? Or are these going to be 3 things I've already knew and this session is not for me? Maybe I want to go see something else.
Yeah, I agree. Quite often when I was previously at the program board in conferences, then there were talks that have nice title, but from the abstract you wouldn't know. You would need to guess what's this talk really about. So the more context you get, the better.
Yeah, put yourself in the mind of the audience, right? How do they decide what talks are interesting to them?
Yeah, clickbaits are nice, but they are not easy to evaluate. So it's like a high risk, high reward. But so probably better not to risk and just write what you think rather than, yeah.
Any other questions about the CFP or about the conference?
Yeah, I might have a topic that I'm thinking about if I look at what you're looking for. That might be something to do with versioning your events, and in event sourcing, obviously you can, at least with a couple of clients, I've had some issues with that, where you have to be still backward compatible, etc. Would that be something interesting to dig down further, or is it too basic?
So it depends how deep would you like to go.
Okay.
Yeah, but for sure that's a topic that people are asking the most. There is Greg Young book about that, but still people find that struggling. So if it contains some real world or explanation, how did you solve it and why is it special or hard, then yeah, of course.
Okay.
Still, if it was just covering the simplest scenarios, then maybe not. But if you can give more context from your projects, like blood, sweat, etc., then yeah, then that could be a good idea.
Okay. Yeah, it's not so much even the technical part that was the difficult, but more the organization and getting the governance and people on board, obviously. So that's why I'm asking. Yeah, okay. Might think about something else as well. We had some issues with concurrency issues and things like that. But that's then really digging deep into the technical stuff more. But yeah, so I have to think about some good topics.
Mm-hmm.
Ah, okay. Thanks.
Yeah,
Lucy.
yeah, and remember, if it's not fully clarified, then you can, as Matthias said, write more context in this private notes, and then we can maybe, if we see that this topic is interesting, then we can get on the call and discuss that further.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. My brain is now racing 100 per minute thinking of ideas, so I'll have to first filter it out and then give a good topic. Yeah. Thanks.
What if the subject is more about how to design CQRS event sourcing systems instead of really diving into the coding, but showing how design can actually help you with a lot of the issues that you will be confronted with? It's more a main conference thing, perhaps, but that's a little bit where I'm struggling. Where does that fit?
Yeah.
Ultimately, we can make that call, right? It's the same sessionize account. So if we feel that this is more like a DD Europe talk than an Event Sourcing Live talk, we can just move it and to the other one. So don't worry too much about it. Submit it where you think it fits the best, and we can be flexible about it.
Yeah, as I mentioned, we may accept not only talks directly about event sourcing, but if it's related and helps you build event source system and give the more context of the whole system architecture, then that's also fine. So CQRS, EDA, etc. But as Matthias said, we will, if the talk is nice, then we will find the right place. Do you have some more questions or concerns?
Or hopes or aspirations? All right. There's, in any case, there's, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that I do think that some sort of a panel meeting during the conference would be really good, where you can perhaps get topics from a board that's hanging on the conference and then deep dive in what's playing at the conference. That often works really well. Get some hidden gems there.
Yeah, we were discussing internally with Matthias also idea around panel, but we aren't sure yet if that works out. And we are also thinking about, but it's still in the air, so giving some space for open source event sourcing systems creators to maybe be able to do some show and tell or have discussions, but we cannot yet promise because we are not yet sure about that part. But that's
the
also
idea
something.
would be, sorry, the idea would be that you know, the creators of open source tooling can meet the community and vice versa, and you know, put a face behind the technology, right? So if you are building an open source tool, please let us know.
Partly.
There's also a lot we discussed in the other, so we had 2 sessions like this before. The videos are online on the CFP page. So there's also a lot of tips on submitting and what sort of stuff we're looking for the other events. And we also had a session on live coding. So this would be nice for Event Sourcing Live as well, right? If you actually show us in real time what you're doing as opposed to slides about it. Slides are fine, but you know, getting it to seeing it working for real is always more engaging, I think, at least. So do consider that if you can.
Yeah, I think that this conference is a nice space to go a bit wild, to also with the form how you are presenting. So not just doing regular agenda and slides and you know, goodbye afterwards, but making something more collaborative or engaging. That's a good opportunity.
All right, if there's no more questions, I wrote in the chat, when in doubt, just submit it, right? We'll figure out if we feel it fits or not. Also, maybe worth noting is that last time for the conference, we had about 350 submissions. You might not be accepted, not because it's not good or not fitting or whatever, but simply because we have no space for it. Yeah, and we can't give feedback on everything. But yeah, send us your IDs and we'll figure it out. So yeah, thank you very much for joining this or for watching this if you're watching the recording, and I look forward to seeing your submissions and seeing you at the conference in June in Amsterdam. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See ya.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.